We're on a road to nowhere. Come on inside. Taking that ride to nowhere. We'll take that ride. I'm feeling okay this morning, and you know, we're on the road to paradise. Here we go, here we go. There's a city in my mind. Come along and take that ride, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. And it's very far away, but it's growing day by day, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. Would you like to come along, and you can help me sing this song, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. There's a city in my mind. Come along and take that ride, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. And it's very far away, but it's growing day by day. It's alright, baby, it's alright. They could tell you what to do, but they'll make a fool of you, and it's alright, baby, it's alright.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. To anyone who is new, I am about 85% blind, so I will not be able to see your comments until after the show when I use my fun machine. However, my guests are always welcome to read comments and questions and tell me to shut up. So tonight I'm super excited because I have a Pennsylvania documentarian, Miss Sandra Alvarez. She sent me her new documentary, InHospitable, so I could watch it for the show, and it is so incredible. I love it so much, and it is phenomenal. If you guys are in Pittsburgh area or PA, or it comes anywhere near you, please go see it. So thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I will say I'm a Pennsylvanian at heart now that I've done the documentary, but I'm actually a Floridian.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, wow. So did you come to PA just because of the uPMC?
Yeah. So I actually, when I was doing research for the film and knowing that I wanted to do a documentary about hospitals and their role in our dysfunctional healthcare system, to say the least, I read An American Sickness by Dr. Elizabeth Rosenthal, which is definitely required reading for anyone that wants to learn about our healthcare system. And I gave her a call after I read the book, and we were just chatting, and I was asking her if she knew of any stories that might be interesting for the documentary. And, you know, because she's also the editor-in-chief of Kaiser Health News. And she said, well, you know, the state attorney general of Pennsylvania just filed a lawsuit against uPMC, University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, which is the largest medical provider in the area, the biggest employer besides the government in the entire state. So she said, you know, that is, you know, something that takes a lot of political courage, and it seems like it might be an interesting story. So I checked it out, and she was absolutely right. And so I went to Pittsburgh and started reaching out to patient advocacy organizations, an incredible one, FAN, Pennsylvania Health Access Network. And they connected me with all these amazing patient activists who were fighting for not only their health, but their health care. And we started filming and documenting basically what was going on over there.
That's so phenomenal. And what gave you the idea initially that you wanted to do a film about the insurance industrial complex?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think each one of us are touched by this broken healthcare system in some kind of way. The film is not about the insurance complex, it's about the hospital complex, but of course insurance is always tied in there. But I was really interested. You don't really hear that much about hospitals when in the bigger picture. You probably do because you're a healthcare activist, but kind of us regular folks that aren't healthcare experts or health policy people, even with the presidential debates in 2018, 2019, I was hearing, our healthcare system's broken, insurance and big pharma and medical device makers, but you just don't hear politicians talking about hospitals, and so everyone complains about those really high bills, but I was really curious about kind of what their role was holistically in the whole, the system itself. And it wasn't something that was really out there for general consumption.
Absolutely. And, I definitely know from the people I work with, who I talk to about this, the hospital bills are one of the biggest issues, not just doctor bills, but going into the hospital unexpectedly. You're talking thousands and thousands of dollars. And this film does such a great job highlighting just the inhumanity of the system. Before we go further, I definitely want to show the trailer.
Sure.
So let me see here. Bear with me.
I see Lazy Quackhole wrote a note saying that they have an idea for documentary and they live in Florida. So feel free to reach out to me via our website. The website's InHospitablefilm.com.
Awesome. What a gem. So I'm curious to see what it would be. They're a regular. That's amazing. Let me see here. All right, let's pull up my screen share gadget. All right.
We can't hear the audio.
Oh, shoot.
It might be muted maybe, or I don't know.
No, it's not muted on my end. Sugar. Is there any way you can present on your end?
Sure. I can play the clip directly from here. Maybe that helps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my blindness is still new, unfortunately, so I'm trying to finagle around here.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, let me see if I can. I don't know if all my 50 million tabs are going to come up. Oh, it says video file. So I can share a video file. So let me see if I can do that. Will that work? I just presented a video file.
Yes, I think that will.
There we go. Yep, you're good.
The cost of healthcare in the United States is simply becoming unaffordable.
Today, what we see is that everyone but the 1% is at risk of financial disaster from even a relatively minor healthcare encounter. Politicians, they're always saying bad pharma, bad insurers, bad device makers, but no one goes after the hospitals. And yet, they are the biggest source of price increases in the last decade.
They found tumors in his liver and in his colon.
I started to have trouble with pain in my face and my left ear. I was diagnosed with a very rare cancer.
I've had breast cancer twice, had lung cancer twice. Well, they found another spot on my lung.
I don't want to say on my deathbed, crap, I'm dying because they wouldn't let me see the doctor.
Hospitals, they made $1 trillion last year, and it's going up. And the reason is not because we're getting so much better hospital care. It's because the hospitals have merged and consolidated, and they're demanding higher prices.
The vast majority of the hospitals are still considered not-for-profit. Even though they do all the profit-making things we see them doing today, our bodies are the ATMs.
So what's your salary?
$6 million.
It's a nonprofit hospital paying exorbitant executive pay.
They're supposed to be a charity. They weren't so charitable in staying in a community that actually needed their services.
A lot of times people get mad and say, well, somebody needs to do this. Well, who's the somebody?
I should not be in medical debt to my employer.
Because of your greed, people are going to die. Can you look me in the eye and tell me that you don't care? You have no conscience. You have all lost your souls.
If you think this battle is not real, you need to look at me. It crosses all color lines. I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, we are all one.
We should not have to choose between bankruptcy
For death.
Wow. Yes. I don't even know where to start. I think probably just to give people an idea, I'm in Pennsylvania, so I do kind of know some of the backstory even before this documentary. But I think, let me remove that there. I think probably the best way to start would be to explain to people the dichotomy between uPMC and Highmark in Pittsburgh.
Sure. So I actually had to do a 2-minute animation in the film to explain this. It's really complicated. But the basic thing you need to know before you see the film is that uPMC is the largest medical provider hospital system in Western Pennsylvania, and Highmark was the biggest insurer in the region. And so Highmark also had its own insurance company, and then basically was starting to raise its prices. And Highmark, their prices were going up because they were having to pay so much to uPMC. So what they did is they bought a failing kind of almost bankrupt health system called the Allegheny Health Network. And they became not only an insurance provider, but then also a medical provider. So now you have, they're both billion, at the time we filmed, it was $19 billion each company. And so then now you have uPMC and Highmark are both medical providers and insurers competing for all of the patients, the customers in the region, and they started battling for market share. Now, the problem with that was, one, they're nonprofits. So they were acting like Pepsi and Coke when really their main mission and why they get tax breaks is they're supposed to benefit the community, right? So, but what was happening was uPMC ended up saying that they were going to stop seeing Highmark insured patients as of June 2019. And we started filming in February 2019. So we started filming with this ramp up of all of these uPMC patients who had Highmark insurance, who couldn't afford to switch, who were all of a sudden now not going to be able to see their cancer doctors, their heart doctors, the people that saved their lives, the people that were able to figure out some rare cancer that, they would have had to travel across the country to see another doctor. And all of a sudden these nonprofit systems are saying, nope, community, people who subsidize us, you can't see these doctors anymore because you don't have the right insurance. So that's kind of where the battle, that's when we started filming in February of 2019. And that's when the state attorney general filed lawsuit against uPMC to try to force them into a deal with Highmark, because it was supposed to end June 30th, 2019.
Right. So, I mean, it's really incredible. So, you know, the film gives a backstory on these people who, you know, I believe it's Beth who has 5 doctors that she has specialists in her rare cancers, things like that. And she has the choice of just not going and having to find all new doctors who don't know each other, all at different places. And when you're going through cancer or things like that, why should you have to leave your doctors to go find new ones who don't even communicate? And then you have Vicky, who worked for uPMC for 13 years as a nurse. I'm sorry?
Yeah, she was a nurse. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's married to Maurice, rest in power. And they had to fly to Atlanta because back and forth numerous times because their Pittsburgh insurance was not accepted in Philadelphia. So they had to fly back and forth to Atlanta.
Yeah, he had stage 4 metastatic cancer, and he was traveling back and forth from Pittsburgh to Atlanta for medical treatments. When the treatment that he needed was right there in Pittsburgh at uPMC.
And then I know, Beth, one of the staggering figures is, you know, a lot of people may say, well, why don't you just switch to Highmark or switch to uPMC? And then, but Beth McCracken, she said the figures she gave was it would cost.
Yeah, go ahead.
6 times what it would be 6 times higher for the premium and 20 times higher for deductible. So those are your choices. Yeah, you could switch, but you're paying more money regardless.
Yeah, because she had Highmark insurance through her wife's employer. So if she switched, she'd have to do it independently through the marketplace, which we all know the problems with that. So.
Oh, man, absolutely incredible. And, you know, one of the things I that was not exactly surprising was the one woman, she was trying to basically rationalize that this is actually, you know, it's not monopolizing, it's actually good for competition. So can you kind of touch more on that?
Sure. Yeah. The PR person for uPMC, when questioned by reporters, kept saying that, no, this is good for the community. It's good to have competition. Prices have lowered. And it's true. When Highmark Insurance came in and bought all those hospitals, it did lower prices because it did bring competition into the region. The problem is now uPMC is wanting to, you know, block Highmark customers from coming in. So they're actually blocking competition, which will inevitably lead to higher prices. So, you know, I mean, he was just a PR person saying what he needed to say, right?
Right. And then the one clip in the trailer where he was like, you know, I make $6 million a year. It's so funny because right after that he says, well, they pay me what they think I'm worth. Oh yeah, my God.
Board. Yeah, he said the board is the one that decides my salary, and they, you know, they make those decisions, not me. But then later on in the film, we touch on the fact that the board is absolutely controlled by the CEO. And in fact, the hospital systems have become so powerful and that they've grown so large that the people on the board are all connected to the hospitals in some kind of way and really dependent on them, whether it's big businesses that are using them for medical services or nonprofit, folks who depend on the donations of the hospital. So it's really intertwined and there's not a lot of accountability. So to say, oh, well, the board decides my salary, it's a little disingenuous. And also it's funny because we used a clip of him from 60 Minutes saying he made $6 million, but that was an old clip. He actually, at the time of the filming, was making $9 million a year.
Wow. Yeah, it was, oh my God. And I love how you showed, I think a lot of us are desensitized to stuff like this, but sometimes you walk into Highmark or uPMC and you see the grand piano and the statues and the water fountains, and why do they need that? Where is that money coming from?
Yeah.
That's a really great point.
Yeah, it's tricky, because I think, we have decided as a country, right, not individually, but as a country, that we want private corporations to be in charge of our healthcare. And the tricky part is for me doing this film is, I didn't necessarily see the people that were running all these hospitals as these kind of villainous people trying to suck money out of everybody. But at the end of the day, that's the effect, because they're business people, right? So they have MBAs, they're running these businesses. So they're just looking at, how do we make the most profit? How do we, let's look at our bottom line. How do we generate revenue, maximize our profit? And so I think that that's just the mentality. And when you make more profit, when your customers are sicker, right? The incentives aren't lined up there. And we did interview a doctor, who was a physician in North Carolina at Atrium Health, which is another one of these huge health system, nonprofit health systems. And he told us, he said, when I was working at the hospital, it was 15 minutes a patient. That's all you get. And they were incentivized to do tests, do screenings, do 1 million, heart monitors and all kinds of stuff. And he said, when all I needed to tell them was, you need to stop your caffeine. Right. And so as doctors now, as employees of these huge health systems, don't feel like they have the freedom and independence to really treat their patients and make them healthier and make them better. So a lot of them feel like they're going against their oath, because the hospitals as businesses are just saying, let's do as much as we can and get people in, and let's keep this moving. So I think that was one of the most frustrating parts of this. And the salary thing is tough, right? You look at these CEOs, and 9 million compared to some of the other nonprofit CEOs is not that high. It's in the 15, 16, 17 million dollars a year to run these hospitals. But at the end of the day, I kind of thought, well, their argument is, well, we have to be competitive because these are billion-dollar organizations, and uPMC $19 billion organization. We need somebody that knows how to run a $19 billion organization. So in my mind, I'm like, well, if you go in there and you figure out a way to be really efficient and lower prices and treat people, give people excellent, wonderful treatment without making them go bankrupt, then sure, let's make your salary competitive to other $19 billion organizations, but that's not happening. So
absolutely. Yeah, I love the one comment that our bodies are their ATMs, and that's such a perfect way to put it. And another doctor in the film actually made a great point that private practices, that used to be 1 or 2 doctors, now they're all being bought and said, no, you got to come to this hospital and stuff. So there is that. It was really interesting to hear from a doctor say, I don't feel like I can care for my patients as much as I used to. Did you find that, with the doctors you talked to, did you find that as a commonality?
Yeah. I couldn't talk to any doctors that worked at hospitals. They wouldn't talk to me. They're employers of these organizations, and the organizations didn't want to talk to me. I reached out to multiple organizations and the American Hospital Association, and they all declined to speak with me. So I didn't speak with very many doctors. We spoke with the one doctor who's in the film who used to work at the hospital system and left because he just couldn't take it anymore. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of frustration amongst doctors and healthcare workers in general. You know, we filmed with healthcare workers, administrative assistants, and people that weren't nurses and doctors who weren't being paid a living wage and, you know, were in medical debt to their own employer. That was one of the craziest things for me in making this film, is that, because, you know, I'm not a health policy expert, I'm a filmmaker. And when I learned that people who were going to uPMC, who worked at uPMC, so they had uPMC insurance provided to them by their employer, and then they also had uPMC medical treatment. So what was happening was uPMC was setting the price for the service, and then uPMC insurance was coming in and then not paying the total that uPMC medical services set. And the insurance is battling with their own company and saying, no, I'm not going to pay that much. So then the employee gets stuck with the difference. So it's like these made up numbers, and the own company saying, no, we're not going to pay that much. So, and then now the employee gets stuck with the difference, and now they're in debt to their own employer and kind of working off their debt as they're working and trying to feed their kids and pay their bills. I mean, it is nuts. And especially because, you know, these are such large billion-dollar organizations. And that's when, again, the salaries of the CEOs kind of, it's uncomfortable, because then you have these folks who can't, you know, pay their bills because they're trying to pay back their medical debt to their own employer. Yeah, it's tough. It was really tough.
I've talked to people who work in hospitals that same thing is going on, but their hospitals are literally deducting it from their paychecks directly.
Wow.
So they're not getting paychecks.
Wow.
It's truly just insane.
It's but especially to me, especially when the provider is also the insurer, that to me is the most frustrating thing, because it's like you set the price and then you know your own insurance is not going to pay that, and then you have anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, and you touch on it in the trailer, but I think one of the most important things that, you know, we learn in that film is that there was a hospital by uPMC, primarily for people of color and poor people who were mostly on Medicaid, and it just wasn't profitable. So they tore it down, which left all of these people in need. And that just highlights, you know, the greed right there, that they would rather, even though those people need it, you know, it's no longer about care, it's about profit. And that was hard to see, but it's a rude awakening that people need to see. Can you kind of talk about your experience, you know, speaking with those people and just kind of hearing their pain about what, you know, not being able to have a hospital there anymore?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to address one thing in the comments, because people are asking where to watch it. And so right now, at the early 2023, we're going to be on streaming platforms. So Google Play, iTunes, Amazon. We're going to be doing another Facebook live screening. So if you want to just kind of keep in touch, go to our website, InHospitableFilm.com, and join our newsletter, and we'll send out updates. So I just wanted to address that. So yeah, you know, again, if you are a for-profit business and you are in a community and you're not making money, shut down, move somewhere else. I mean, you're a for-profit, but these are non-profit businesses, right? They're not paying taxes, and they're getting incredibly high tax breaks, right? For the main mission to serve the community. That's the reason they get the tax break. So that's when, you know, that's why the community is so upset when uPMC closed that hospital, because their argument was that they weren't making profits, but that is still up for debate. A lot of folks in the area and, community activists, but also researchers were finding that they were actually not being efficient with their spending at all. And they were just kind of gave up, and they weren't trying, and they weren't actually trying to make it work. But I'm not an expert in that, so that's up for debate. But, uPMC was saying, oh, we're not making money. But, then a lot of the people in the community were saying, well, then mark it as a loss. You're a nonprofit, hospital. You're making so much money in these other hospitals all over the region, mark it as a loss and serve this community that really needs it. It's when uPMC closed that hospital in Braddock, which a lot of people might know Braddock now because John Fetterman has kind of become this national icon. And he was the mayor of Braddock. So, and Braddock was the place where they had all the steel mills that shut down. And so all these people were left there with a lot of asthma, a lot of medical conditions because of the steel plants. And then uPMC was the hospital was really the only thing that was keeping that community going and healthy to a certain extent. And they closed the entire hospital. They shut it down. They knocked it down. And the community was just left reeling with really nothing. And it was devastating. Actually, the state representative, Summer Lee, that we filmed with, and she was the representative for Braddock area. She actually just got elected to Congress in Pennsylvania. Yeah. So a lot of progress there for sure. And we're really excited for her. And Josh Shapiro, who we featured as the Attorney General in our film, also just won the governor. So
I did not know that about Josh Shapiro. I truly did not, and he was an integral part of what happened. Out of curiosity, when Fetterman was mayor and that shut down, did he try to stop it or?
I don't know. That doesn't mean it didn't happen, but I don't know. We did reach out to him for an interview, but he declined. So I'm not sure.
One of the other things I definitely wanted to touch on, speaking of
actually, you know what? I'm sorry to interrupt you. There is one shot of him. I remember now. There's one shot of him in the footage. So it's not my footage, but Tony Bubba, he is a documentarian in Braddock, and he filmed a bunch of stuff around the closing of the hospital. I can't remember what it was, but it was like maybe 2009. And so I remember now there is one shot of everybody protesting, walking down the street when they were closing the hospital, and Fetterman's in the background. So he was there.
Oh, okay. Well, another, I'm always talking about how there's so many different kinds of activism, and, these incredible women and men in your film who just show up to the uPMC, essentially, and then we're told they couldn't come in because they weren't pre-registered.
It was a public board meeting. It was a yearly public board meeting for a nonprofit hospital for uPMC. Yeah. Yeah. And they were told that they weren't allowed to come in because they hadn't pre-registered.
And can you explain what, I just bawled watching that, especially Vicky. Man, and also You Have Lost Your Souls. That is, man. Can you talk about what the energy was then, and what was the sense of? Did you guys think something was going to be accomplished, or did you think it was going to fall on deaf ears, or what did you think would happen?
Yeah, it was crazy. So basically, we were told by the activists that they were going to be doing an action the day of the public board meeting. So we knew we had to get cameras over there, and I flew up from Florida, and we were getting ready, but we had no idea what was going to happen because, they had tried to pass a bill in Harrisburg. It wasn't moving. There's, it's a lot of lobbying there, so nobody kind of expected it to. They were trying to do it through the courts with Josh Shapiro, but it wasn't, they were waiting and waiting. So they thought, okay, our last resort is just appealing directly to the board and hoping that they put a stop to this so that these patients can get access to their doctors. And so some of them got access. I didn't actually get access. I was wanting to go in and like secretly film with my phone, but they wouldn't let me in. And so, but some of our patient advocates did. And luckily, there was someone that did film on their cell phone, and she Facebook lived it. So the footage went out into the world, and they did. The patients in our film, they stood there and they spoke up and they told the board, you know, and there's a little bit of that in the trailer, but they told the board what, you know, that it was, you know, their money was more important than their lives, you know? And so it was really powerful. It was incredible. And actually Summer Lee was there as well and spoke out. She's so amazing. I love her. And so yeah, it was really incredibly powerful. And we'll never really know what actually changed all of their minds, but 6 days before they were supposed to lose access, there was an announcement that they both agreed to work together and for the next 10 years. And so they signed a private agreement to not block access to these people's doctors for 10 years. So we'll never kind of know exactly why, but I think it was a combination. I know a lot of your listeners are also activists, and I think it was definitely a combination of multiple fronts. You know, they were having these town halls. They were speaking to the media. They went to Harrisburg. These patients they were in the middle of their cancer treatments, and they went to Harrisburg. They stood on the steps and they spoke out and spoke to the politicians. They protested, they marched, they went to the board meetings, you know. So I think it was a combination of all of those different elements that really kind of moved, you know, as Josh Shapiro in the film says, it moved the needle.
Yeah, absolutely. And does it concern you that the 10-year agreement is closed? We have no idea what's in it. Are there caveats? Like, we have no idea. Is that concerning to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's really concerning to all of the patients. I mean, they're really happy to have the temporary fix, but it's very concerning. And now, I mean, that was in 2019. So now it's 7 years away. It's also a private agreement. So if both parties agree to end the agreement, they can. You know, it's tricky.
Wow,
and you know, there's tons of other, it's not like that fixed all of the issues, right? There's all the other issues, like the hospital workers and the pay, and you know, the not really contributing to the community and kind of, you know, really giving their community benefit, you know. And you know, there was the state representative that we also filmed with, Ed Gainey. He's now the mayor of Pittsburgh. And he's been trying to go after uPMC and trying to get them to do a payment. They call it a payment in lieu of taxes, a pilot, and just basically saying, okay, uPMC, you need to pay your fair share. You're not paying property taxes. You own half the city, all the property, all those parcels that we can't collect on. Our schools are crumbling. They're rat infested. Our streets have potholes. You need to start contributing something. And so, you know, they're in the process of that right now. So we'll see. But I'm hopeful, because all of these people who were kind of, you know, state representatives and starting on the grassroots, they're now, you know, Ed Gainey's now the mayor. Summer Lee is now in Congress. Josh Shapiro is now the governor. So it gives me a lot of hope. And also, I feel like it's a really good lesson in political bravery too, because a lot of politicians don't want to take on hospitals, right? Hospitals are the largest employer in many states in this country. They do really wonderful things for communities. They, you know, donate a lot of money, and not to mention they save our lives, right? So I think they're they're not an easy villain like insurance companies. So it's really difficult for politicians to take them on, and they have a lot of money and are, you know, lobbying and doing all kinds of stuff in DC and also in the state capitals. So you know, it shows that if you step out and you take on these hospitals, you'll still get elected. You know, the people in our film did. They all got reelected.
Yeah, that's a great point. I kind of wish I could see some of these comments and
Yeah.
questions.
I can kind of look through them and see if there's anything we can kind of address. Let's see.
I know my dear friend Jenna in the comments, she lives in Pittsburgh. She lives right next to Braddock.
Oh yeah, she actually just said that Fetterman supports uPMC keeping its nonprofit status, which is interesting because that's something that a lot of the people in Pittsburgh are not for. And I didn't know that, but
that could be why he didn't want to be in the film.
yeah, it's possible. I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah.
One of the people in the film who I just think is such a badass is the Allegheny controller.
Oh, she's amazing.
She's
yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Can you tell those who haven't seen the film kind of like what that position is and what she did in this movement?
Yeah. So I didn't even really actually know what a controller did before watching this. So she calls herself the financial watchdog. And she has to make sure she's an elected official, so she has to make sure that the county is, she roots out waste and fraud and make sure that the county is doing what they're supposed to be doing and not wasting money. And so she saw this problem with uPMC and kind of took it on when no one else would. And I think she also saw the way that the county was losing so much money on the lack of property taxes that uPMC was not paying. So she they're basically a monopoly there on a lot of the services. So she took it on as her cause, and she was so brave. And and another person that got reelected, right? She took them on, and they must hate her with a passion because she was just relentless and spoke out in the media, and she coordinated all these town halls, and she was amazing. She's now a judge. So she stepped down from her, or I don't know if she stepped down or just didn't run again or whatever, but she's a judge now. But yeah, she's amazing too. I think that's one of the most inspiring things from this film, besides of course the patient advocates who are in the middle of treatment and fighting for their healthcare. The politicians who really stepped up and fought the good fight. You don't really see that.
I'm sorry?
You don't see that too often,
Yeah. Not really. I think it was definitely, awesome to see people like, the controller, standing with the people who it was affecting the most. And she had fire. And she was, in it, like some of the people in this film act like it's their own burden too. And I think that's so important. That is, that empathy, which, obviously shown through to the uPMC board. Or, a lot of it could be that it was on camera. A lot of times they are just shamed, and sometimes it takes that and sometimes it works. I do want to get, and I know for people who haven't seen this, you may want to seen the film, you may want to come back and watch this after, but I do want to get an update on Evie and Vicky and Beth and how is everyone doing?
Sure. Yeah, and I read a comment of somebody asking me a question, so I can answer that question after
Sure.
the question you asked me. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, they're hanging in there, they're hanging in there. Beth, her treatment was delayed because of this fiasco, and it did spread. So she's tough as nails. She really is. And I just saw her because we did a screening in Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago, which was so exciting and wonderful to actually screen the film in Pittsburgh. But she's doing well. She was, up there in the Q&A and, still speaking out and still fighting the good fight. So, And Vicky, same, you know, she attends all the screenings. She's really a champion for this cause, and has done everything she can for that. And she's a nurse too, so she's part of the nurses union there and doing a lot of speaking engagements to speak out about this. And Evie's okay too. I mean, you know, she has a pretty serious lung condition, but she's hanging in there. She's hanging in there. So yeah, so the question is, have you gone without insurance, gone into debt due to medical bills? How has this broken system impacted you or someone you know personally? No, I mean, I haven't gone without insurance. I'm in a very privileged position, to not have to go through that terrible experience. It's kind of interesting because my 4 months into making a documentary about exposing the hospital system in this country, my dad went into cardiac arrest, and he spent 3 months at Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami, and they saved his life. You know, and so at the same time, I'm making this film, kind of exposing all the big business and all the kind of, you know, bad behavior. I'm sitting literally working in the ICU with my dad, you know, working on this film while these doctors and nurses are doing everything they possibly can to save him, and they did. I mean, he's still alive, you know. So, yeah. So it was a really complicated for me, and I get why this story of hospitals is so complicated, because there is that, you know, they do save our lives. They do, you know, that's where we have our babies. That's, you know, that's where our doctors are. So I think it's really tricky, but no, I mean, I've been really privileged and to not have to go bankrupt, where, you know, I know most of the people that are bankrupt in this country is because of medical bills. I'm also in this privileged position that I get to actually tell these stories and you know, scale them out and up and get them out into the world.
Do you think that you'll be making another documentary about healthcare, or what is, you know, what's on the horizon?
Yeah, there are so many different, I mean, we could have made a 10-hour series about this.
Yes,
So
definitely.
there were so many things we didn't cover. I mean, we didn't cover Medicare for all at all. You know, that could have been a whole thing. We didn't cover one thing that I thought was really interesting that I learned about was value-based care. I didn't know anything about it. Do you know about it? And so that's the you know, that's when they incentivize preventative medicine and people being healthy, and the insurance companies actually pay when the doctors keep the patients healthy. And I'm like, that's a great idea. Like, if we're going to keep the system of private companies running our insurance, like, let's incentivize them to keep us healthy, because the current system we have is not working. And it's really complicated of how it works, because it doesn't really sound like I don't get how that works and how you can actually make money when you keep people healthy. But it's, you know, it's a system that's in place and people are doing it. So it must work in some capacity. So yeah, but I think I just finished working on a soccer series for Showtime with Trevor Noah. So I think you know, I'm doing different things, but I'm sure that I will circle back to healthcare.
That's so amazing. I cannot thank you enough for joining me. And Jenna is actually the one who sent me the link. Like, did you see this? I'm like, oh my God. So thank you, Jenna, as well.
Thank you, Jenna.
There is, what do you want people to take away from this so that they feel they really want to see your film?
That you mean what would make people watch the film, or what do you want? What do I want the takeaways of the film to be?
What do you want to, if you're gonna give your elevator pitch, like why people should watch this film?
Oh, you know, I there's so many things, but I think the main point is all the things that I was surprised by as a regular citizen, not knowing really anything about the hospital's role in our dysfunctional healthcare system, and being so shocked at all of the very kind of simple ways that there could be so much more accountability. And I think really for me, and especially I know for you and your listeners and the people that follow this, is how to be more active in this. And there's really a way. I think a lot of times with healthcare, it's so easy because it's so complex. It's like reading the friggin' tax code, right? It's so complex. It's so easy to say, you know what, like, forget it. It's too complicated. It's too enormous. We will never be able to fix it. But there are really kind of straightforward things that we can do to make it better, but we need to be educated about it and we need to know what's happening. And I think that that's, to me, the biggest reason to watch this film is because, you know, it really educates people on the things that are going on with hospitals that most regular folks just do not know about. One simple thing, which I talk about a lot now after making this documentary, is the fact that nonprofit. So the majority of hospitals in the U.S. are nonprofits, and so they're not. You know, there's a big question of, are they really doing enough for the community to get their tax exemption, right? And so one thing that really can be done is to use that nonprofit status that is obviously very precious to them, to use it as an accountability lever, right? To say, okay, well, if you're going to keep raising prices, if you're not going to pay your employees a living wage, if you're going to have all this different bad behavior, then you can pay taxes. And that is something they're desperate to hold on to. So there are different ways, I think, that we can kind of be creative about holding hospitals accountable if we are deciding that we're going to have private companies run them. You know, another thing is a lot of some areas in this country have almost 90% of what they call, you know, hospital consolidation, meaning that 90% of regions in this country are almost kind of monopoly. The hospitals are monopolies. You know, and they just have a monopoly. They have all the bargaining leverage. They can raise prices to whatever they want if they wanted to. And they are. Research is showing that prices are going up. Some areas in this country are not. So South Florida is one of those regions where there still is kind of general competition and the prices are a little lower than the places where there's no competition. And Southern California is another. So it's also looking and doing research, looking at your region and figuring out what's going on, because it's coming, right? This is the trend that's happening. Hospitals are merging and acquiring, and, you know, doctors' offices and other hospitals, and they're getting bigger and bigger. So being really aware of your own region and figuring out what's happening there. A lot of these mergers and acquisitions, they come up for public comment. You know, you can speak out. You can reach out to your local representative, your state representatives. The state attorney generals do have a lot of power over nonprofit hospitals in particular. So there's a lot of different things that can be done at an individual level.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much, you guys. I cannot recommend this film enough. It is done so well, and it touches on so many things that are so important, especially to us activists and to people who want to learn more about what goes on behind the scenes. And I just thank you so much. And please give my love to everyone in the film. For those watching, we are still taking testimonials for our complaint. We are doing an official complaint to the Human Rights Council of the United Nations for leaving millions of people uninsured and without healthcare, especially in the middle of a pandemic. So if you would like to submit a testimonial, we are using these as essentially evidence to show what is happening to millions of people in our country right now. So it's never been done in history. So it's super important. If you want to contribute, please go to m4m4all.org. And I definitely want to hit up, Vicky and Evie and Beth and stuff for their testimonials, because, oh my God, I'd be so honored.
Absolutely. I'll put you in touch with them. Yeah. And, you know, if anybody, you know, just kind of ended up tuning in at the end, it's inhospitablefilm.com. Please follow us on social media. Please reach out. If you want to do a community screening of 25 or more, we can coordinate that for no fee. So definitely reach out to us through the website.
Awesome. That's so cool. Yeah. Well, my sister-in-law lives in LA, so I may have to tell her about that, because I was telling her all about the film. She works in film, and I was like, oh my God, I just saw this documentary. Oh my God. I'm going to have to tell her about that.
Thank you.
But thank you so much again. You're amazing. You do incredible work. And thank you all so much for watching.
Thank you. And thank you for all the great comments. And I just saw somebody said, thank you for making the documentary. So, yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Take care.
All right. Thanks.